Welcome back to Linda's Pantry. So today my recipe is inspired by my daughter-in-law. On Christmas Eve she brought over a crock pot full of delicious Chipotle turkey meatballs, and they were absolutely wonderful. I didn't get the recipe from her yet, but it inspired me to create this recipe and it came out fabulous. We're gonna make pepper jack cheese stuffed Chipotle meatballs, and I'm gonna use grass-fed beef, and I think that you guys will really enjoy this recipe. It absolutely came out phenomenal. So if this inspires you to stay with me, and I certainly hope it does, go down in the About section below and check out all the links I've left for you. I've got my Wild Tree website where you can shop for all natural, organic, preservative-free products for your pantry, or you can go check out my Facebook page, hit like over there, and join in on the conversation. And if you make this meatball recipe, go post a picture over there and show us how it looks. All right, guys, let's go make these delicious stuffed meatballs. Come on. So I am ready to put these together. I've got my pound of ground meat, and this is grass-fed, 93% lean, grass-fed ground beef. I've got a half of an onion here that I've roughly chopped. I'm going to put it in the food chopper because I want it really, really fine. You can grate it on the food grater as well, and I've done that. But go ahead and take a half an onion and just throw it in your food chopper. I've got 3 cloves, pretty small, but 3 cloves of garlic to equal about a healthy tablespoon of garlic. I've got a bundle, you know, like a handful of cilantro as well that I'll be chopping up and putting into this. And then I have some chipotle powder, chili powder, and some salt. I've got an egg. I've got some breadcrumbs back there. I've got my Monterey, or my pepper jack cheese, and I've cut that in cubes. You want these cubes kind of small, maybe 1/4 inch by a 1/2 inch, or you know, somewhere in that you can really wrap a meatball around it, but not have it be so big that it's too big to be an appetizer meatball, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get all this stuff together here. And this, I love this chopper. It's easy, it's small, it's easy to clean up. I can bring out the big Cuisinart, but I don't need it. I only need it for this couple of things. And I'm putting the garlic in there too. And the reason I chop everything first, it just gives it a head start. It makes it easier on the chopper to get it done quickly for you. Get that locked in place. Okay, so now that I've got my onions all chopped up, I'm gonna crack the egg in here and get that down. You're gonna wanna get about, I'm gonna say, a healthy 1/2 cup or so of breadcrumbs for this amount of meat. 1/2 cup of dry breadcrumbs. You could do fresh if you wanted. So we're going to do a 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs. And that's going to help bind as well. I got to get my cream out. I almost forgot. We need some cream in the mix. That's also going to keep these really tender and moist. If you add milk or cream to a meatball, and I've said this before, the enzymes in the milk product break down the meat and help it become more tender. Just like when you brine it in milk or milk products. And I'm going to go ahead and put some tomato paste in here. I don't need a lot, but I want a little bit, just because I can. Just maybe a tablespoon. And this is the tomato paste you get in the tube. Very convenient. I can put this in the refrigerator for the next recipe, and it just, I'm not opening up a can to store and forget about in the refrigerator. So I've got chipotle powder. Now this is a chipotle chili powder that I'm going to use in this meat mixture. The sauce is really what's going to have the kick of the chipotle. So I'm only going to put, for a pound, I'm only going to put a teaspoon of some salt in there, just a couple grinds. You don't need a lot of salt, maybe a half a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my cilantro all cut up. And really all I do here is take your cilantro, and cilantro stems are tender enough, you can put those right in the meatballs. And you're just going to go ahead and just chop it up. I roll it up as tight as I can get it, almost like a cigar, and then chop it up, and you're good to go. And then you can run your knife back over it in a minute. I'm going to save part of this for the sauce, and half of it's going in here for this. So I'm going to say a good third of a cup of chopped cilantro, half for the sauce, half for the meat. And I'll put that in the meat sauce. I'm going to go ahead and get, so now that I've got everything in here, I got to add a little bit of cream to this mix. And you're going to add that a little bit at a time until you feel like you've got a really nice meatball that will stay together. And usually for this amount of meat, you're looking at about a quarter of a cup to a third of a cup. You don't want them too sloppy where they won't hold together, but you want them really moist. And, you know, I hear don't overwork the meat, but if you don't incorporate all the ingredients in here, I think it's more in how you treat the meatball as you're rolling it than how hard you work this at this point. Obviously, I don't need to do any more than get it incorporated. And then we're ready to roll meatballs. Oh, I'm so excited. So I'm going to show you what I do. And I just get a kind of a little patty in my hand. And the first couple you're going to have to judge. And then I bring my patty up around it. And this is going to be that's too big a meatball. I don't want the meatballs that big. So I'm going to start taking it off of that. And I want these as close to appetizer size as I can get. So a little bit bigger than a golf ball, but yet keep that cheese inside. So there, the cheese is nicely tucked in the center, and you're gonna get that cheesy, oh, goodness going on. So I'm gonna finish rolling these up, get these on a tray, and we'll get to making the 400-degree oven and get them par cooked. I want the outside to set and the meat to kind of set up so the cheese doesn't ooze out and they don't fall apart in the sauce. Trouble with putting raw meatballs in a sauce sometimes is that they fall apart before the egg and the meat can actually set up. This way, they'll get a little caramelization on them and they'll have set up in the oven, and then we're ready to move on to the sauce. So I've got my little 3-quart Dutch oven heating up here, and I'm going to use olive oil for this. We're not cooking at a super high temperature, but I want a fair amount of olive oil to get this started. It's going to add flavor to this sauce. It's just going to be delicious. So I'm going to say 2 healthy tablespoons of olive oil. And then I'm going to start with, and it depends on the heat of the pepper, 2 of those peppers in the adobo sauce. And then we're going to get some fire roasted diced tomatoes down, some regular diced tomatoes and their juice. You want all their juice. And a can of hot rotel with habanero. This is my spin on this. And then, because it's not going to be saucy enough with just that, so we're going to have to thin that down a little bit. And I decided I would thin it down with a good dose of chicken stock, but I'm going to pour it right in the can that the fire roasted diced tomatoes came in, just to clean the rest of that out of that can as well. So I've got about 2/3 of a can of chicken stock, and now I feel like, ooh, you know, I probably have that right. We're going to bring this to a rapid boil, let it simmer on its own for a good 5-10 minutes. Then I'm going to take the immersion blender and go ahead and blend it up smooth. Some of this liquid will have evaporated by then. Blend it up smooth and it's ready to receive. This has been simmering on the stove for about 10-15 minutes, and it's actually a little more than a simmer. Obviously, we've got some bubbles coming up. It's not a rolling boil that you can't stir down, but it's definitely boiling. And so what I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to take a little bit of the broth that's in here, and I'm going to go ahead and taste it for heat and seasoning. Because if it's not warm enough, or it doesn't have enough of the chipotle flavor, I don't need it hot, but if it doesn't have enough of the chipotle smoked jalapeno flavor with the adobo sauce, then I might add another one. But I think that 2 is going to be plenty for this. Wow, just in that little bite, I got the richness of the fabulous olive oil. That's an organic extra virgin olive oil. The brightness and acidity from the tomatoes and kind of the sweetness, but I also got that smoky background, and that's really all I want from this pepper. I don't want heat. I do detect some warmth, probably from the habanero, especially, but this adobo pepper, or that chipotle pepper right there, hadn't let go of its seeds yet. So what I'm going to do now is, before it gets too thick, I want to take the immersion blender and go ahead and blend this up. So then I can sink down the meatballs into there, and hopefully you can see what I'm doing. And this is really hot, so be very, very careful. I'm going to turn it down while I do this. So as smooth or as chunky as you like. I think we've got it just about right. We want it like a nice thick marinara almost. So think of this as a Spanish or a Mexican style marinara, if you will. And I'll give you a visual of that here so you can see. And there's a tomato that was kind of green. It didn't want to waz up, so we're taking that out of there. Probably a piece of a core. But see how nice and thick that is? But yet it's still thin enough to receive meatballs, which are coming next. So I know some of you guys were going, where's the cilantro coming in? So the remainder of that cilantro that I had, I'm putting that in now. It adds some brightness, some color, and it adds a little bit to the sauce. I really like it. If you don't like cilantro, you could certainly use parsley. That would be fine in this dish. Okay, now I want to get my meatballs off the tray, or at least the ones that are going in the sauce, because obviously they're not all going to fit in there. And some of them did ooze a little bit of cheese, but I don't care. It's just going to make that sauce delicious. It won't matter. And this is great served with rice on the side. If you wanted it as a main dish, which is how my husband will have the leftovers, because I'm gonna package the rest of this up with some new sauce for a freezer meal workshop, or a freezer meal for him that he can just pop in his crock pot, put it on low, it's already cooked, it's ready to go, and he can come home and have it over rice, or he can even have it over pasta. Pasta is not just for Italians, right? So you just kind of figure out what's going to really fit in here, and I can still fit some more meatballs. These are hot. So actually I'm getting quite a few in this batch of sauce, which is perfect. And if you were going to do appetizers, you definitely want to get it as full as possible. So maybe that's what we'll do. We'll just fill this bad boy right up. 2 meatballs in here. Top it with some extra cilantro to add a little green on top and make it pretty. And, you know, everything. Go. It adds I'm going to go ahead and taste one of these. And I'm using a fork only because I know how tender. Ooh, look how tender that is. It just has come apart. And I want to see if there's any cheese. Ooh, there's a little bit of cheese coming out. Actually, most of the cheese probably already is in the sauce, but that's okay. It all adds to the element of the dish, and if all your cheese ends up in your sauce, it is not a bad thing. It just means it's a cheesy chipotle sauce. So let's take a bite of this meatball. Actually, I'm going to take a YouTube bite. Oh my gosh, I haven't done that yet. Okay, so I've got plenty of sauce, some meatball on there, and here we go. It's really hot. Oh well. Oh my gosh. Okay. The first thing that hits my palate is how tender and soft, not mushy, but tender these meatballs are. And then the next thing that hits me is this warmth on the outside, all around the outside of my tongue, that I've got this warm stuff going on, and it's just absolutely delicious. It's got that smoky chipotle flavor. It's not too hot. It's wonderful. Truly hope that you try this. This would be great over a bed of brown rice. You could actually make yourself your own meatball sandwich with maybe a torta roll, and some more cheese if you wanted to. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I'm really, really happy with the outcome. This is such a delicious recipe. I hope you try it. It's super easy to do, and it's fun. Your guests will love it, and it's a different spin on meatballs. I've done Italian meatballs, I've done an Asian-inspired meatball, and now this is my Mexican-inspired meatball. Without a doubt, top of the line, and I'm so excited that my daughter-in-law inspired me to do this. I hope this inspires you to come back. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Share this on your Facebook page, and as always, guys, you better look forward to the next recipe because it's going to be oh so delicious, just like this one. Yum. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. God bless.